Okay, welcome back to my third and final part of my review of Spy number 271 in the Eureka Masters of Cinema Collection, Son of the White Mare, and other early works by Marcel Jankovics / Yankovic, whichever is the correct, whichever is the correct pronunciation. I'll leave it in for free. You know, if you watch my channel, you know how much I like to get pronunciation correct, and I'm not always correct, but either way, Marcel, as I said before, what a guy, what a director, rest in peace. And what a legacy he's left behind that has been preserved in carbonite in this wonderful release. Let's bring this thing home. I'm going to talk about the three short films that are included in this set and round off my thoughts on the entire Blu-ray. So if you're coming to this before the other two parts, I talked about the main feature film from 1981, which is Son of the White Mare that he directed. In part two, I talked about the first Hungarian feature-length animated film, János Vitéz from 1973. And in this final part, I'm talking about the three other short films that are included in the Blu-ray and the extras as well. So first of all, we're going to start with 1968 and Dreams on Wings, I think it's called. Let me double check that one. Yes, Dreams on Wings, a short film created as a commercial for Air India. The people who wanted this, they turned up at the animation studio that Marcel was working at, and they wanted the specific director's style, and they just came into his office and said, "Can you do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And so someone suggested to him the transformative style, or at least objects transforming into other objects, and he jumped on that. And that very quickly became his style. Essentially, was the transformation of objects within animation. And so he created this short film. It's about 7-8 minutes long for Air India. It's just this commercial for this airline, and it's an interesting one. It's my least favorite film in the set. If we're talking about, well, all of them, if you include all 5 films, but I quite enjoyed it. It was just interesting going back to it, seeing his other films and seeing the beginnings of how he designed these transformations. Some of them are very, very cool. And the film is essentially kind of a visual travel log. You get kind of motifs of planes flying over and like planes transforming and things like that. But then you have like kind of the traditionally stereotypical kind of vistas of certain countries, and kind of even down to the music. You would get like kind of themes and kind of sounds that kind of evoke particular music from different countries and so on and so forth. So you get like France, and there's the Eiffel Tower and so on and so things like that. The one that I like the most is probably Japan, where it's kind of like a traditional hand fan that kind of funnels up into Mount Fuji, and then kind of lantern kind of comes up behind it. That was kind of cool. But yeah, there's not too much to talk about with this. I thought it was interesting, but ultimately not fantastic. You could see I love that they included it, and that it's it's in high definition and stuff. It looks quite nice, but as a kind of beginning for a director, I think it's vital to put it in a set like this if you have the means to include it. But it's not something I'd watch for kind of pleasure, I suppose, or maybe even go back to again. It was right for what it was. There's a very strange scene right at the end where you kind of go inside the plane and you see the customers, and there's a guy who's just like flying through the air, and he changes into the plane, and it's a very strange transformation. It reminded me of like one of the janky kind of like videotape kind of transformations that they used to do when like that sort of effect was becoming a bit more commercially available, and it very heavily reminded me of that. I don't know where it's from, but I've seen it as a GIF on Twitter of all places. But to go from this great Hungarian film director's work to Twitter GIFs, but it's George Lucas. It's I think I don't know which order it comes in, but it's George Lucas's head either transforming into or out of a camcorder. That's kind of what it reminded. Just two things that shouldn't go together. And this man flying, and then he changes into a plane. It's very strange.
Digital magic.
Anyway, so that was made in 1968, and leading into that, he made the feature film János Vitéz, which was very successful. But also a 2-year project, and something that was took a lot of hard work. And so the year later, in 1974, he followed that up with a short film called Sisyphus. And this is like a 2-minute film. I think it was Oscar nominated, and it's hugely minimal. Nothing like the other films that you see on the set, which are very colorful and lots of things transforming into different things and all this kind of stuff. This is a very simple white background and just outline. It's almost like, he took a character from one of his films and like just took out the body and just showed you the outline. But it's this kind of, fairly muscular looking at times outline of a man, very rough and ready, but he's pushing a rock up a hill. And the hill is represented by just like, just a part of a line. It's not even a full line across the screen, just like it changes all throughout, because this is a completely hand-drawn, frame-by-frame animated film. There was a woman who worked with him on this, and so they kind of collaborated on the film, but he was also there kind of drawing most of the frames. I found this fascinating because the rock is getting bigger as this figure is pushing it in. It's the kind of classic, what would you call it, story, fable, life lesson, whatever you want to call it, of just like the man pushing a boulder up a hill, up a mountain. It's the struggle. And so it's very simple, it's a visual, and also with the sound of the man grunting and groaning, which adds so much. The sound is so vital to this film. But I love the parts where you could like see the veins in the arm, and it's amazing how much detail he and the woman who worked with him on this were able to get out of the very simple figure of this character. And of course, the boulder gets bigger towards the end, and he, for him, this was about the kind of the struggle of getting Janos Vitez made. And once they'd finished that film and it was successful, he was approached, but with the idea of, we have some money left over, do you want to make a short film? He didn't tell anyone what it was about, but for him, this was very much about how much of a struggle it was to make Janos Vitez. So I really, really enjoyed this one. And then the final short film from 1977 is actually called The Struggle. And I think that is also about the same thing, but in the booklet it says that it's about his struggle to get Son of the White Mare made. I'll talk about this in just a second, but he doesn't really talk about Son of the White Mare as much as he does the other films in the set, in the main interview presented on the Blu-ray. So I'm not entirely sure which professional struggle the struggle is meant to depict, but I don't think it really matters as much. I think that the Sisyphus one, coming a year after Janos Vitez, is very clearly, and he has definitively stated, is about him making that feature film, and how much of a, again, literally pushing a boulder up a hill, it probably felt like for him. But the struggle, I think, is a bit more abstract in the sense of, what is the director intending? Was the director thinking when he made this? I think it's more of an artist, and I think he does talk about it's more just like the artistic idea of what the struggle is. So the struggle is a short film about a painter, or sculptor, I should say, with a big kind of vaguely human-like, statue of stone, just a big clump, and he's chiseling away at this statue. And then the statue, as it begins to kind of be revealed as a kind of human-like shape, then begins to take pieces out of the sculptor. Now the creation has come to life and is now literally chipping parts off of the creator. And I thought that was such a funny kind of, I don't know, it was very sardonic kind of humor of like, the artist being destroyed by his own creation, and also being made in its own image, kind of, to the point where their faces are kind of being swapped almost. And by the end of it, the creator is just this hobbled down husk of stone, and the sculpture is this, it looks exactly the same almost. It's this very, and I loved that kind of, that mirror image in a way. And it did confuse me at times, because in the middle of the film, they're both hammering away at each other, and I wasn't quite sure which was which. But then by the end of the film, I was like, the creation kind of outgrew the master. And I thought that was really interesting too, as a story idea, I suppose. All packed into like 2 minutes. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The way that there was two very different art styles for the sculptor and the sculpture, and how those blended as the film went on. And I felt like it told a really nice story in such a short period of time. The Sisyphus is very simple, just man pushing boulder uphill, and it's kind of animated in an interesting kind of way. But this one was there was a lot more depth to this one, I suppose, when you really think about it, about artists and the things that they create. And then the things that they create can kind of come back to bite them on the ass, or kind of literally take chunks off them, So that was really funny, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's similar to Sisyphus. This is white background, and I've probably shown you a clip by this point anyway, but I loved the style of it. I thought it was phenomenal. So this is probably my second favorite film on the set. If I was to rank all the films on the set, it'd be Son of the White Mare at the top, obviously, The Struggle, Janos Vitez, Sisyphus, and then at the bottom would be Dreams on Wings. So those are the films. I really enjoyed them. I'm so glad that they were included. I mean, if this was a release that was just Son of the White Mare with no extras, I'd be over the moon. Because the transfer, I will talk about the transfers now, looked fantastic. And I believe these are 4K restorations. So yeah, digital 4K restoration for Son of the White Mare. Another 4K restoration for Janos Vitez as well. And then the other 3 short films looked really good. They looked like they were high definition. And I definitely would say that the 2 later ones, Sisyphus and The Struggle, looked the best compared to Dreams on Wings. So yeah, I think that the films look great. I mean, there's certain source material that you could see there may be a few blemishes that here and there. It's not like the reference quality animated film transfers, but I think they looked great and really represent the films well. And isn't it just so great that an animated director like this, or any director, director of animation or director of live action, any filmmaker, any artist, has created a body of work, and decades afterwards, and just after their death, those works are preserved, in the best possible kind of quality that shows you how they would have been seen and experienced at the time. I think is really like invaluable, and really what I love about Blu-rays really is the way that they're able to contain so many things. They're able to contain films, obviously, but they're able to contain films that look, almost as good as they would in a film print, compared to DVD. With 4K, that step gets taken just that little bit further. But also they contain, kind of like people say, film school in a box. Then you have the extras and the background context, and further than background, there can be a lot of depth to that context, and a lot of stories on how these films were made, why they were made, how they were received, all sorts of things. And then, just packaging that all together it's almost like an art piece within itself, I think. When you have a nice, nice cover, and it's a nice layout and everything, and it feels like an experience, taking it off the shelf and opening up the case, putting the Blu-ray in and watching the films, and then watching the extras, getting the background information, looking through the book, reading the essays. And yeah, I just think that when it's done right, it's so fucking exciting for a film fan like me who likes this shit and loves film history, film preservation. And this is just such a great release in that regard, I think. And if I was Marcel, I would be really pleased that, in the final years of his life, his films got restored to like a high standard and are now being made available to people around the world. I think that's really great. And I'm so glad that this Blu-ray exists. And this is, I'll leave my final kind of gushing wankery till the very end, but we'll just briefly go through the last bit of extras on this disc. There is an archival feature, as I mentioned, about the making of Janos Vitez, filmed at the time. This is really cool, just a nice 3-minute thing, and he sat there talking about the process, and there's a nice shot of him kind of stood with his arms folded magnanimously outside the studio, and then all the people appear behind him. I really like that they included that. There is The Director Talks, a featurette with Jankovics produced by the Hungarian National Film Archive, along with Brighter Colors, an extensive interview with the director from the Hungarian National Film Archive, filmed in 2020. So the Brighter Colors interview is phenomenal. So it's like a 30-minute piece. He really goes into the depth about how he got started in animation, what his initial kind of dreams were, and how he got into the world of kind of animating, making his first short films, making Janos Vitez, and then a little bit about Son of the White Man. It's a very illuminating interview. There's a lot of interesting stories in there. He's very personable and told his story well, I thought. So it was a great interview. Loved hearing all that stuff. But then the Director Talks featurette is about 9 minutes long, and it has more clips to it. And there are clips in the Brighter Colors interview as well. But the Director Talks one, there's more clips, and it uses a lot of the same interview, but also bits of it that weren't in the Brighter Colors piece. And then there's also parts of another interview. So if you see the Brighter Colors 30-minute interview first, and then watch the 9-minute Director Talks featurette, it feels a bit watered down by comparison because you've already heard a lot of that stuff. But I'm glad that it was at least included because there's a few other little bits and pieces that weren't in the other one. So that's very good. And then, finally the booklet. I guess I could just talk about the 2 essays in there, which I enjoyed very much. And yeah, it's, I honestly couldn't praise this release enough. I'm really kind of almost giddy about it. So the first piece is called The Film That Stands Alone by Charles Solomon. This is a really good piece where he talks about it's setting the stage basically for the films of Marcel Jankovics, and kind of also talking about the main story of Son of the White Mare, and how that poem was kind of passed down through generations, and how there was like a dozen, or I think he said a half dozen. Let me actually get the correct half dozen accounts of the story. So there's varying degrees of it, and Marcel used bits of all of them really in the final film, and it kind of gives you a rundown of the basic gist of the original story and so on. And I thought it was really nicely written, and I learned a few things about the director and kind of just the animation world in general. And then Circle of Life by Rich Johnson, Struggle, Transformation, and the Eternal Recurrence of Marcel Jankovics, goes a lot more into animation in general, and kind of talks about different animated films and kind of similarities and all sorts of stuff. It even mentions The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, which I talked about in the first part before I'd read any of the booklet or looked at the special features. And I really enjoyed this, the second piece a lot. There's just a lot of really cool stuff in there that I got a lot out of, because it just talks about the animation industry in general, and how that kind of applies to a film like this, which is kind of out of the ordinary, really. Son of the White Mare. And now I really want to kind of track down his other films. I don't think he made that many. I just know that he made one in 2011 that took a very long time to make, and is currently the longest animated film in the Western world. Anyway, Son of the White Mare. You get one incredible animated film. You get 2 fantastic shorts. You get an interesting beginning film by a director, and then you get his first feature film, which is very good too, and for me, probably worth revisiting and worth reconsidering. And then you get a nice meaty interview with the director, another featurette on the director, featurette about the making of his first film, beautiful artwork on the slipcover and on the case, and gorgeous transfers, and a really nice booklet with some cool images and some nice essays. What more could you possibly want? I just think that for me, this is why I love collecting Blu-rays, and this is why I love the Masters of Cinema series in particular, because there are so many discoveries, and there are still discoveries. Many of the films I've yet to watch in the collection. That's kind of how I roll. I don't watch everything immediately, and that's kind of to my detriment, but also to my great joy at times when I kind of pick something up off the shelf and I watch it and I go, wow, that was great. And I'm so glad that, those are the experiences of film watching that I like to hang on to. I don't like to kind of rattle through as quickly as I can. I do sometimes, but, it's nice to know I have a lot of things in the back pocket that could be as potentially enjoyable as a film like Son of the White Mare. Now, obviously, with this one, I'm reviewing these as they come in now, which I'm enjoying a lot as well. But I never heard of this film, never heard of this filmmaker, a few months ago. Before this thing got announced to be part of the MOC line, I had no idea what it was. So that's the shit I love, because it's like, they put out a Blu-ray and it's like, oh, great. Never heard of it. Looks cool from the cover. I love animation. I love obscure animation because it's stuff that, is likely going to be more interesting than your standard Disney fare. And I watched it and I loved it and was really excited. And I'm still really excited about it and love talking about it. So thank you for indulging me over these 3 parts. If you have, I very much enjoyed diving through this set in 3 parts and giving it the time that it deserved, I hope. I've enjoyed talking about it. Hopefully it wasn't too... hopefully it was tolerable to listen to for the past, hour or so. If you watch all 3, it's about 15-20 minutes each, I think. Well, I think maybe the Son of the White Mare one probably rattled on longer than 20 minutes, but I knew that it was going to be a case of if I talked about everything on this Blu-ray in one video, it'd be a gargantuan video, and then I'd feel like I'd never get around to editing it. And so, 3 parts at least I can kind of, rule of threes, right? If we go back to Son of the White Mare. And I feel like there's so much more to talk about with that film now that I've kind of been watching it again for the clips and stuff. I could revisit this one fairly soon, I think. I probably won't, but and that's another really great thing is when you've watched something in your collection that you loved and it was a real surprise, and you know that, well, not that you just know that, you're actively looking forward to going back to it again whenever you do. That's really cool, and to me, a valuable film watching experience. So, thank you for watching. One of my favorite releases, I think, in the whole massive cinema collection now, and goes without saying, probably one of my favorite releases of 2022. Loved it, loved it, loved it. The overall package, fantastic. The main film, so good. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've seen this. I'll end this video at some point, I swear. If you've seen it, let me know. If you're planning on getting it, let me know. I'd love to see that people are buying this or that they're interested in this. And especially, I'd love to hear people who've seen this. Because, it is one of those things that doesn't get the respect. Don't get no respect. Animation. And, you get your Pixars, you get your Disneys. And I love them too, but there's so many great things out there if you only look a little bit further outside the lines, and find a film like Son of the White Mare that doesn't have any lines, doesn't have the black outlines. It's a completely different experience to what you're normally used to. And that to me is massive. So I'll leave it there. For the fourth time, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.